Okay, here's a genuine question. When was the last time you ever saw the cast and crew boycott and protest their own movie? Something they had spent months producing with blood, sweat, and tears? Well, that's what happened with The Dying of the Light, 2014. This film was so bad, the cast and crew made a rare public protest by wearing t-shirts showing their non-disparagement clauses. Why? Well, it was a way to say they weren't allowed to publicly badmouth the film. So here's what happened. Paul Schrader is most famously known for writing Scorsese's Taxi Driver, and he was the director for 2014's Dying of the Light, which was a CIA thriller led by Nicolas Cage. But Schrader lost the film in the editing room. The studio re-edited the movie without Schrader's input. They completely changed the story and tone, and the producers recut the project without his involvement. I mean, they changed everything, right down to changing the musical score, and they even changed the color grading. So, in response, Schrader and the cast staged a silent protest by posing in t-shirts, and he walked away from the film, never wanting to be associated with it again. He later released his own version of the movie online and called it Dark, in order to show his original vision for the movie. But he always publicly disowned the studio version. Alien 3, 1992. Many people know David Fincher for Fight Club, Seven, Gone Girl, The Social Network, and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. But not many people know his first ever major Hollywood movie was Alien 3 in 1992. And it was a complete nightmare. The studio constantly interfered, forcing rewrites and fighting him on every single decision. Fincher later said he felt like he was basically fired from the movie, even though he still had to show up every day. And he walked away from the film never wanting to be associated with it again. Honestly, it's virtually impossible to see him even acknowledge the film exists. You know what? He even refused to take part in the Alien Quadrilogy documentaries in 2003. This is despite every other single Alien director taking part. There was even the assembly cut, which restored 30 minutes of footage and was actually better received by fans. But even that had to be done without him. All of this just tells you how much he did not want to be associated with this movie. Natural Born Killers, 1994. Not many people know that Quentin Tarantino wrote the original script for Natural Born Killers, but he wasn't involved in directing. Warner Brothers handed it over to Oliver Stone, who transformed it into a wild, strange, dreamlike hallucination-style movie. And the final product was nothing like Tarantino's original vision. In fact, Tarantino was so disgusted with Stone's version that he attempted to make the original screenplay public, but he was threatened with a lawsuit from the movie's producers. Furious, Tarantino disowned the film and urged fans of his to avoid it at all costs. He said, "I hated that movie. If you like my stuff, don't watch that movie." This is despite admitting he never even watched the full release. The film went on to develop a cult following, but Tarantino has never softened his stance or offered any praise. He's openly distanced himself, making it clear this is one of his biggest career regrets, ever. Dune, 1984. Many people know David Lynch for iconic cinema like Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks, but his 1984 adaptation of Dune is infamous for being a disaster, and he ended up wanting absolutely no part of it. Lynch disowned both the theatrical release and the extended TV version, going so far as to use the pseudonym Alan Smithee for the director credit on the movie. So here's the thing. Universal Studios heavily re-edited the film, cutting it down and rearranging scenes without Lynch's approval. He didn't have final cut control, which meant the studio could, and did, reshape the movie against his wishes. When the extended TV version came out with even more footage added, Lynch was completely left out of the process. He felt the new edits destroyed his artistic vision for the adaptation of Frank Herbert's novel. To make matters worse, there was a financial dispute over compensation for the extended cut. So, guess what Universal did? They went ahead without him. Using Alan Smithee was Lynch's way of publicly saying he wanted no credit for a version of the film he didn't recognize. But here's the funny part. It turns out that Alan Smithy had a busier career than some real directors, because Dennis Hopper also asked for his name to be removed from the 1990 film Catchfire, which was a thriller Hopper both directed and starred in alongside Jodie Foster. But Hopper hated the final cut so much, he asked for the director credit to be replaced with Alan Smithy. Hopper later regained control and re-edited the film, releasing it in '92 under the title Backtrack, with restored scenes, changes to pacing and tone. So Backtrack is essentially Hopper's director's cut of Catchfire. And, well, its original cut has been almost completely erased from existence. But, here's the thing. Backtrack only brought in $5 million at the box office on a reported $10 million budget. So the movie still bombed, but at least Hopper had the satisfaction of releasing his own cut the way he intended, right? It also makes you wonder if some other directors unfairly blame studio interference for the failure of a movie. Because, Hopper got what he wanted, and the movie still flopped. So, yeah. And you know what? Alan Smithy was really busy that decade, because he was back again for Hellraiser Bloodline 1996. Kevin Yagher was hired to direct the fourth Hellraiser film, which told the story across multiple timelines. But yet again, the producers of the movie just couldn't help themselves and seized control during editing, drastically changing his version. So Yagher had his name removed. And, of course, the film ended up being credited to Alan Smithy. But by far, the best Alan Smithy story is from 1997 with the movie Burn, Hollywood, Burn. In a twist of irony, Arthur Hiller directed a satire about a director trying to remove his name from a film to be replaced with Alan Smithy. He was literally trying to make a film about a guy called Alan Smithy who directs a big action film. The studio bosses step in, change everything, and totally mess it up. Alan hates what they've done and wants his name taken off the film. But there's one very big problem. The only fake name directors can use in Hollywood to hide their name is Alan Smithy, and that is his real name. So he tries to steal and destroy the film in order to escape the nightmare. And that is the basic plotline of the film. What's weird is that what happened in the plot ended up happening in real life, because the actual director, Arthur Hiller, also wanted his name taken off the movie he created, because the film ended up being a disaster. The studio recut and released the project without his approval, and it ended up being a critical and commercial failure. The film ended up being so bad that Hiller publicly disowned the film and demanded the DGA remove his name from the credits. The DGA stands for the Directors Guild of America. So, anyway, you ended up with a movie about a director wanting to be called Alan Smithy, directed by Alan Smithy. The DGA got tired of getting so many Alan Smithy requests that they actually stopped allowing directors to use the pseudonym altogether. But you know what? There are way more director-disowned movies out there. Like Hellboy 2019, that director Neil Marshall wishes he never, ever, ever touched. And that's only scratching the surface, so let me know if you want a part 2.